It's The Rage in the Cage on NES Works episode 46. Another Japanese titan makes a dual-release NES debut here, and it's not really a start worthy of the legacy involved. Taito is kind of the godfather of Japanese gaming, thanks to the towering influence of Space Invaders, but the company's first two NES carts feel a little underwhelming in comparison to other summer 1987 releases, where Rygar and Section Z radically reinvented recent arcade games for their home conversions. Taito demonstrates that not everyone felt inclined to take the same dramatic approach to NES as Capcom and Tecmo did. Legend of Kage and Elevator Action hail from arcades too, but their appearances here don't do much to elevate the material beyond their coin-op incarnations. We'll start by looking at the second chronological release here, since it's actually based on the older original arcade work. Elevator Action was an arcade classic, one of those games that appeared anywhere you saw coin-ops during the Golden Age. Arcades, skate rinks, mini-golf shops, even grocery stores. The franchise has had fairly respectable lasting power through the years. The original was ported to every system imaginable, received semi-remakes and spin-offs, and even had a couple of sequels, the most recent of which was 2009's Elevator Action Death Parade. The original made its debut more than 25 years earlier than that, back in 1983. An early entry in the platform shooter genre, Elevator Action almost constitutes something of a stealth game. Rooted in the Cold War spy thriller film genre of the 60s and 70s, Elevator Action tells the tale of a secret agent named Otto, whose task is to sneak into a series of buildings, steal enemy documents, and escape. Every level takes place inside a high-rise office complex with elevators and escalators serving as their internal conduits. Agent Otto begins each level by grappling to the roof and begins making his way toward the ground floor, gathering secret documents along the way. Each building is loaded with doors, but the only ones that really matter are the red ones. Otto can duck into red doors to collect the documents inside. The other blue doors only contain bad guys and can be ignored, except when said bad guys emerge to go after Otto. Elevator Action plays pretty simply. Otto can walk with a strange sort of gliding gait, as well as jump, duck, shoot, ride escalators, and of course, control elevators. Both Otto and bad guys die with a single bullet. Bad guys only tend to fire off a single round at a time though, while Otto can unleash fusillades of 3 bullets at once. This and the player's intelligence gives Otto a distinct advantage, though the bad guys compensate for being grossly outsmarted by grossly outnumbering Otto. They show up in numbers and can overwhelm you by surrounding you pretty easily. The elevators here are both a blessing and a curse. You have to wait on elevators to arrive at your current floor, which can take a while and put you on the defensive as enemies appear to take potshots at you. On the other hand, once you climb into an elevator, you have remarkable control over its movement. Unlike in real life, you can control the vertical movement of an elevator, shifting direction at any point. You don't have to get inside an elevator to ride it, but you can only control it from inside. You can ride along the top, subject to the whims of the elevator system, and vulnerable to crushing. If you've ever wanted to go out like Emilio Estevez, well, just ride an elevator all the way up to the top of the shaft. But this works both ways. If you can catch an enemy agent under or above an elevator, you'll crush them flat. You and bad guys alike also die from falling the height of a floor. Oh, and you can jump kick enemies in the face to attack them. For defense, well, you don't have a lot of options. You can duck into the red doors and wait out bad guys, and with good timing, open doors of either color can block bullets. You can fake out enemies with elevator movements too, and you can duck or jump enemy fire. It's all fairly minimal, but the game mechanics here were pretty ahead of their time. Running and jumping and shooting and ducking wouldn't really become concrete play features until Ghosts and Goblins a few years later, and at the time of its debut in arcades, Elevator Action really didn't have much in the way of contemporaries. By 1987 though, it was all feeling a bit on the dated side. Compared to Rush and Attack or even Kid Icarus, Elevator Action is stiff and clunky, without much going on beyond the surface gameplay. That said though, this is probably the most faithful arcade conversion we've seen on NES outside of maybe BURGERTIME. The original Elevator Action had a vertical screen, and like Donkey Kong on NES, it's been reformatted for the horizontal format of a standard television here. But overall it works, and even though it doesn't compare favorably to some of its NES contemporaries, those games might not have ever happened without Elevator Action. And now the real shocker, this port of Elevator Action was developed, of all studios, by Micronix. Indeed, this appears to have been Micronix's very first NES project, having been released in Japan in June 1985. but you barely know it. The frame rate is reasonably stable, the controls are fairly responsive, and it doesn't make you want to die. So it's kind of a miracle. On the other hand, we also have a conversion of 1985's arcade action title The Legend of Kage, which feels almost like a spiritual descendant of elevator action. It's an action platformer, almost, involving a lot of running and jumping, and jumping, and jumping. Where elevator action has a methodical pace and precise controls, Legend of Kage is a loose, high-speed, wildly energetic mess of a game. It's insanely ambitious, really, attempting to capture the entirety of the ninja experience in a single manic multi-stage game. The hero, Kage, can leap insanely high. He can toss shuriken in 8 directions and swing a katana, parrying enemy attacks and deflecting projectiles. He can climb trees and shimmy across the support beams of an enemy fortress. He can submerge himself in a river to avoid foes, breathing through a reed. The Legend of Kage feels a lot like... wait a second. I've just received a note from my producer. Huh. Okay, so apparently it's pronounced The Legend of Kage. So anyway, The Legend of Kage feels a lot like a super high-speed version of Kung Fu, including the need to climb a series of stairs to reach the final showdown. Basically, this game takes place across the course of a year, as the Princess Kiri is abducted repeatedly by a string of ninja warriors, and Kage is forced to fight through the enemy hordes in order to rescue her. Once you save her and defeat the boss, you move along to the next season, and the cycle repeats. The initial stage takes place in the woods, where shuriken-tossing ninja and fire-breathing monks appear in endless waves. Here you can leap to the top of the trees, or climb them, but jumping around leaves you pretty vulnerable to enemy attacks. The monks in particular have a nasty habit of swooping in and blasting you with a burst of fire as you're descending helplessly from a leap, so you're better off staying low, leaping only to grab power-ups that appear in the air. These include orbs dropped by enemies, which upgrade Kage's attack power and grant him the ability to shrug off one enemy attack. There are also these strange creatures that putter across the screen and give Kage even more impressive abilities, such as an illusory twin mirage that renders him invulnerable, with the power to throw shuriken in 8 directions at once. You can also find scrolls that work basically like ninja bug zappers. The screen flashes, and attacking enemies drop immediately dead. It's pretty intense and probably ought to come with an epilepsy warning. The forest stage is basically an endurance test. You have to fight your way from one side of the forest to the other, and defeat the monks that appear after set periods of time. Only when you defeat the red monk that appears at the end can you advance to the next level. The second stage works more like a level from Ninja Kid, which maybe isn't a coincidence since The Legend of Kage for NES was produced by Tosei, the same company behind Ninja Kid. Here you dash through an underground waterway to infiltrate a castle with the objective of killing 10 enemy ninja. There's a lot going on here. In addition to the mechanics of the first stage, which carry over, you also have the addition of water. Kage can drop into the water to reduce his profile and help avoid enemy attacks, though this does prevent him from tossing shuriken himself. He can also submerge completely for total protection. Once 10 ninja are defeated, Kage moves along to the wall stage, which scrolls entirely on the vertical plane. The castle wall stage is a simple climb as you ascend to the top while avoiding enemy attacks. Again, Kage tends to be somewhat vulnerable while leaping due to the game's jump physics, but you can abbreviate your jumps by canceling them midway through. Otherwise, you basically jump the height of the screen. And finally, in the castle interior, you simply need to reach the top floor of the castle while not getting killed by the onslaught of bad guys that appear. At the top, Princess Kiri has been tied to a post, so you need to cut her free with a sword slash, at which point the two of you escape into the forest and she's abducted again. Here, Tosei adds an interesting bonus challenge to the NES version, a boss fight in which a pair of twin monks attack as a butterfly hovers overhead. Initially, the monks are invincible. In order to hurt them, you have to destroy the butterfly first. Once you've taken it out, the monks become vulnerable to your attacks, and destroying them allows you to repeat the stage cycle all over in a different season. The Legend of Kage is a messy and frankly kind of bad game. The action feels extremely random and unpredictable. You can get into a good groove and rack up points, or you can die to like the second enemy in the game. You can deflect many enemy attacks with your sword, true, but this means The Legend of Kage often degenerates into an exercise in button mashing as you just keep pounding your sword attack. It's boring and tedious, and it's pretty crazy hard. I've never been able to beat the second season cycle, let alone the third and final one. Yet despite this sloppiness and iffy design, you really have to respect the hell out of what Taito and Tosei were trying to do here. This game is pretty much the sum total of ninja pop mythology, from the water breathing to the emphasis on seasons to the general look of the whole thing. The game as ninja movie thing would be done a lot better by Ninja Gaiden in a few years, but this is a pretty ballsy attempt all the same. And the NES version contains a lot of extras over and above the arcade original, including new enemies like the aforementioned twin monks, and a rare black-clad monk on the castle wall who drops one of those bug zapper scrolls. The Legend of Kage was a tremendous mess even back in 1987, and it sure doesn't hold up well now. Still, it seems to have achieved at least a little bit of traction. Taito remade the game several times with new features, and it saw a proper sequel 20 years later on Nintendo DS of all things, thanks to Etrian Odyssey developer ICARUS. So maybe these aren't the most amazing debut titles for a legend like Taito, but they kind of show a pattern at work, huh? It seems like an awful lot of publishers got their start on NES by farming out their games to a handful of external developers, and eventually brought them in-house and started making better games. Taito, like Capcom and SNK, would eventually start producing their own games. At the same time, there is something nice about seeing arcade games brought over so faithfully to NES. Not every home port has to be Rygar or Section Z, you know? Next on NES Works, Link, he come to town. Come to save the Princess Zelda.